All right, get ready because today we're going supersonic.
Supersonic, huh?
Oh yeah, but not the kind you're probably thinking of. We're talking quieter supersonic flight. Like breaking the sound barrier without the boom.
Okay, now that's got my attention.
It should. We're diving deep into some fascinating stuff about NASA's X-59 Quesst aircraft and its mission to revolutionize how we travel the world.
The X-59, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one designed to make sonic booms quieter?
Exactly.
It seems almost impossible, doesn't it? Like trying to make thunder clap silently.
Right, but that's what makes this so groundbreaking, and they've just hit a major milestone.
Oh, what's that?
The X-59's engine just passed its maximum afterburner test.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a big step towards actual flight tests.
It's not just about raw power, though, is it?
Nope, it's about proving the engine can handle the intense conditions of supersonic flight. I mean, think about breaking the sound barrier. It generates insane heat and stress. They had to make sure the engine wouldn't, shake the whole plane apart at those speeds.
That makes sense. But how do you actually make a sonic boom quieter?
Yeah, it seems kind of counterintuitive, right? Like, how do you silence something that's inherently so loud?
Well, the secret lies in the X-59's unique design. It's not your typical airplane shape at all.
It looks pretty futuristic, that's for sure. I've seen pictures.
It's not just for looks, though. They've stretched it out, creating this incredibly long and slender fuselage. And then there's that carefully sculpted nose, almost like a beak.
So it's more about redirecting the sound waves than actually silencing them.
Exactly. The X-59 is designed to spread out those shock waves that create a sonic boom.
So instead of one giant window-rattling boom, you get what?
Think more like a gentle thump or maybe just a subtle rumble.
Wow, that's amazing. So basically they're trying to make the sound of breaking the sound barrier, well, barely noticeable.
That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can pull it off, it could completely revolutionize air travel.
No more being restricted to supersonic flights over water because of those ear-splitting booms. Imagine flying from New York to London in under 3 hours.
It would be a game changer, no doubt. But the Quesst mission, that's what they're calling this whole project, right?
Yeah, the Quesst mission.
It's about much more than just this one plane, isn't it?
You're right. The X-59 is like a flying laboratory. They're not just trying to build a cool plane. They're aiming to change the whole game. Gathering data, proving this quieter supersonic concept works, and then
using that data to change the regulations that currently ban supersonic flight over land.
Exactly.
It's ambitious, to say the least.
Definitely. And it makes you think back to the Concorde.
Ah, the Concorde. A pioneer in supersonic travel.
But ultimately limited by those sonic booms, right? Restricted to flying over water. The X-59 could be the key to unlocking a whole new era of supersonic travel that's not only fast, but also acceptable to fly over populated areas.
I see what you mean. It's not just about speed. It's about changing how we connect with the world.
Exactly. But okay, I've got to ask. We've talked about all this amazing tech, but what's it actually like to be there for these tests?
Oh, it's quite something.
You mentioned the afterburner test, the one the X-59 just passed. What's that like in person?
Imagine standing near this sleek, futuristic aircraft as the countdown begins.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
There's this palpable tension in the air. Everyone's holding their breath.
Mm-hmm.
And then dot ignition. The engine roars to life, and it's like the ground is shaking. This torrent of heat and noise blasts out. You can feel the power.
Wow, that sounds intense. It must be an incredible sensory experience.
It really is.
And to think, all that power is ultimately aimed at creating a sound that's barely a whisper on the ground. It's kind of poetic when you think about it.
It is, isn't it? The power of human ingenuity, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely. But okay, let's dive back into the specifics of the X-59's design for a moment. We talked about that long, slender fuselage. How does that actually help reduce the sonic boom?
Well, think of it this way. It's all about spreading those shock waves out. That long body helps dissipate the energy over a greater distance and time.
So it's less about silencing the boom and more about stretching it out, making it less intense.
Exactly. It's like taking a sudden, sharp clap and transforming it into a low rumble.
I'm starting to get it. But what about that distinctive nose? It's so unlike anything I've seen on a plane before.
The nose. That's where things get really interesting.
It looks almost bird-like.
It's not just about the length. It's about those meticulously crafted curves and angles. Imagine like a wedge, carefully slicing through the air and preventing those shock waves from piling up. If they were to pile up, that's what would create that big jarring boom.
So they're basically sculpting the air itself to create a smoother, quieter, supersonic experience.
Precisely. It's a testament to how much we can achieve when we combine our understanding of physics with creative design.
This whole project is mind-blowing. It's like science fiction coming to life right before our eyes.
It really is an incredible feat of engineering.
And it has the potential to reshape our world in profound ways. I mean, obviously travel times would be drastically reduced, but what about the ripple effects beyond that?
The potential is enormous. Imagine a world where you can travel from New York to London in just a couple of hours, or from Los Angeles to Tokyo in under 4.
Wow. It would fundamentally change the way we think about distance and travel time.
Absolutely. It could revolutionize business, tourism, cultural exchange.
It's like living in a much smaller world where borders and oceans seem less significant.
Exactly. But of course, we need to be mindful of the potential downsides as well.
Right, because with such a huge leap forward, there are always going to be some challenges and concerns, right?
Faster, more frequent travel could have environmental consequences, and we need to make sure this technology benefits everyone, not just a select few.
It's about striking a balance, isn't it, between progress and responsibility.
Exactly. It's about ensuring that supersonic travel is not only fast and efficient, but also sustainable and equitable.
Well said. Okay, I think we've done a pretty good job of unpacking the basics of quieter supersonic flight. But before we get too carried away with the future, let's bring it back down to Earth for a moment.
Back down to Earth, huh?
Yeah, literally. We need to talk about some of the challenges and concerns that come with this technology.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into that. What do we need to consider?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if they manage to minimize those sonic booms, there's still going to be some noise, right?
Right, it might not be a window-rattling boom, but it's still something new for people to get used to.
And then there are the environmental concerns we talked about, like the potential impact on the ozone layer.
Yeah, that was a big issue with the Concorde. They were flying pretty high up there.
Exactly. But they're trying to do things differently with the X-59.
So how are they tackling that? Are they using different fuel or something?
Well, yeah, that's part of it. They're working on more environmentally friendly fuels and engine technologies.
So less of those emissions that can harm the ozone layer.
That's the idea. Sustainability is a big focus in this whole project. It's not just about going fast, it's about doing it responsibly. Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, but let's shift gears for a bit and talk about the economic side of things. This whole project must be costing a fortune.
Yeah, it's not cheap. I think the latest estimates put it around $250 million.
Wow, that's a lot of money. How do they justify spending that much?
Well, the argument is that the potential benefits far outweigh the costs. They see the X-59 as an investment in the future of aviation.
So they're betting on the long game here.
Exactly. They believe this technology could revolutionize air travel, create new jobs in industries, and boost the economy in a big way.
Okay, so it's about more than just building a cool plane. They're trying to create a whole new industry.
Precisely. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible and shaping the future of how we travel and connect with the world.
I see what you mean. It's like a ripple effect, right? This one project could have huge implications across so many different sectors.
Exactly. It's a bold vision, and it's exciting to think about the possibilities.
Okay, well, before we move on to our final segment, let's take a moment to step back and think about the bigger picture here. We've learned from past attempts at supersonic flight, like the Concorde.
Yeah, the Concorde was an amazing feat of engineering, but it did face some limitations.
Like what?
Well, the sonic booms were a big issue, which is why it was mainly restricted to flights over water. And it was expensive to operate, which made ticket prices really high. Only a limited number of people could afford to fly on it.
And it looks like they've really taken those lessons to heart with the X-59.
Definitely. The quieter sonic boom is a game changer, because it could potentially open up supersonic flight over land. And advances in engine technology and aerodynamics should make the X-59 more fuel-efficient and less expensive to operate than the Concorde.
It's amazing to see how technology evolves, how we learn from past mistakes and keep pushing the boundaries. But it's not just about the technology itself, right? There's also the humor element, the social and cultural implications.
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial part of this whole conversation. How will quieter supersonic flight change the way we interact with the world, the way we think about distance and time? Will it bring us closer together, or will it create new divides?
It's almost like a science fiction scenario, isn't it? Imagine being able to travel to any continent in just a few hours.
It would fundamentally change our perception of the world. We might start to see ourselves as more interconnected, as part of a truly global community. But there are potential downsides too, like the risk of cultural homogenization or increased environmental damage from more frequent air travel.
Right. It's a double-edged sword. It's about using this technology responsibly and ensuring that it benefits everyone, not just a select few.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how all of this plays out.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this segment, from the technical challenges to the economic and social implications.
It's a complex topic with a lot of different angles to consider.
But before we move on to our final segment, let me leave you with one last question to think about. If quieter supersonic flight becomes a reality, how do you think it will change your life? What opportunities would you seize? What choices would you make?
That's a great question. It really gets you thinking about how this technology could impact our individual lives and reshape our priorities.
So we've talked about the tech, the challenges, the big picture, but now I want to get personal.
Personal, huh?
Yeah, like what does all this mean for us as individuals? How would quieter supersonic flight actually change our everyday lives?
It's a good question. It's not just about getting from A to B faster. It's about how this kind of technology could reshape our whole way of life.
Exactly. We've all fantasized about zipping across the globe in a few hours, but what would that really look like?
Well, for one, think about how it could impact work. Imagine working in New York, but being able to have dinner with your family in London that same evening.
Whoa, that's kind of mind-blowing. Or like spending a weekend exploring a remote island in the Pacific and being back in time for work on Monday.
Exactly. Suddenly, distance becomes less of an obstacle.
hmm
But it also raises questions about our priorities.
Yeah, would we be tempted to travel constantly? What would that mean for, our personal relationships, our connection to our local communities?
And what about the environmental impact? Could we sustain that level of frequent travel?
That's a big concern for sure. We can't just ignore the potential downsides of this technology.
Definitely not. We have to be mindful of the ethical implications, not just for the planet, but also for different cultures around the world.
Right, because if everyone is suddenly jet-setting everywhere, does that lead to a loss of cultural diversity?
It's a valid concern. And we need to think about the economic implications, too. Will this technology be accessible to everyone, or will it just benefit the wealthy?
So many questions to consider. It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
It is, but it's also incredibly exciting. The X-59 might still be in its early stages, but it represents a huge leap forward. It's a testament to human ingenuity.
Absolutely, and it reminds us that we have the power to shape the future, to use technology to create a better world.
Exactly. But that means having these conversations now, thinking critically about the potential impact of this technology, and making sure we're developing it responsibly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let me leave you with one final thought.
Hit us with it.
If quieter supersonic flight becomes a reality, how do you think it will change your life? Would you embrace the opportunity to travel the world, to connect with people and places across vast distances? Or would you choose to stay closer to home, focusing on your local community?
It's a tough question. There's no right or wrong answer. It's about figuring out what matters most to us and how we want to navigate this new era of travel.
And that's what makes this so fascinating. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about the choices we make and how those choices shape the future. This has been a truly mind-expanding deep dive into the world of supersonic silence. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep your minds open and your imagination soaring.